Then Simeon blessed them and said to his mother Mary, "This child is destined for the falling and the rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be opposed, so that the inner thoughts of many will be revealed. And a sword will pierce your own soul too." Hi, I'm Father Raul, and I thank you for once again letting me join you as we walk together on this Lenten journey with Jesus on the road to Calvary, considering and reflecting on the silence and the silences that we encounter there together. This week, we are reflecting on the silence of Mary and the women and the beloved disciple who stuck through with Jesus to the very end and now stand with Jesus at the foot of the cross. Unlike the silence of the disciples who fled out of fear and the crowds who have walked away out of indifference, this silence is a deeply mournful, loving silence. This is the silence of watching at the cross, staying there till the very end. A silence that is beyond words. For what could possibly be said to comfort this broken-hearted mother as she sees her firstborn child tortured, beaten, and finally hung on the cross to die a slow, painful death for all to see. In a way, this is the sort of silent watch that Mary has been keeping for the past 3 years. And how difficult this must have been. For 30 years, this was her child. She was in charge. She was the one raising him, calling the shots. In fact, Mary's voice was probably the singular voice that Jesus was most familiar with in his life. The voice he obeyed before any voice except God's alone. But for 3 years, he has been on his own. He has been leading his ministry. He has left home. And while Mary and their family seem to have followed at a distance, we know from Jesus' words when he says, "Who are my family? Those who obey my Father," that he has kept them at a distance, that he has been focusing singularly on his mission from God. So Mary, knowing that this is what it has all been about, has made the sacrifice of silence, of having to keep her distance, of having to let Jesus do what he needs to do, of having to let him make his own seemingly more and more dangerous and reckless decisions until we end up here at the foot of the cross, where she once more can do nothing but stand in silence. This is a painful path, a heartbreaking path. But it's a path Mary has chosen. The path she chose because she knew that this was all a part of God's plan. There's a Christmas song that's become quite popular that asks, "Mary, did you know? Did you know all that was to come? Did you know all that Jesus would accomplish?" Surely she knew some of it in the Magnificat. She tells us that God is doing great things and that Jesus will accomplish the breaking of thrones and the rising up of the lowly, feeding of the hungry and the sending away of the rich. But could she possibly have known how deeply her soul would be pierced? This week, we reflect on the faithfulness of Mary even in her silence. and we consider how often God calls us to paths that are difficult, that are painful, that truly will have us endure suffering, but will be for the salvation of the world, for the uplifting of our siblings in Christ, our fellow children of God, and for the glory of God. How often are we asked by God to make sacrifices, to follow paths where we don't know what lies ahead? How often are we asked to accept God's will, ourselves able to offer nothing but our silence, our love, and our faithfulness? This week we stand with Mary, the women and the beloved disciple at the foot of the cross, contemplating God's will, offering ourselves in faithfulness, and giving what seems so little but was so profound when Mary gave it. Our obedience, our love, and our silence as we watch and wait with Christ, even when no one else would. May God bless you and keep you as we continue this journey together.
Mary, did you know that your baby boy would one day walk on water? Mary, did you know that your baby boy would save our sons and daughters? Did you know that your baby boy has come to make you new? This child that you delivered will soon deliver you.
Mary, did you know that your baby boy will give sight to us?